We'll do a review in Likutei Sichos in Chelek Chof Aleph, volume 21. This is the third Sicha for the portion of Shemos. And the star says that beginning with Siv Vav, it's also the Siyum of Masechta Brachas. The Rebbe discusses Jewish people are called Hashem's children, but it seems like a child who is a youngster, Torah expresses in some verses, Kinari Yisrael v'ahaveyu, a young child. The love of a father to a young child is because he's his child, not because of any accomplishments. But in this pasuk in our parsha, which is the first time we're talking about B'ni B'chayri, the fact that the Yidden are a son who is an accomplished. So how do we reconcile these two ideas of B'ni being a son, a cotton, a minor who has no uh, qualifications that can distort the essence love that a father has for a son and a son for a father, and the fact that a son is an accomplished who is reached, and there could be a love because of his accomplishment, which could obscure that essence love that is between a father and his son. And the Rebbe explains how the uh, accomplishment of the son of is not really a contradiction. That's a continuation of that essence love, as the Rebbe will explain in detail. The Rebbe will also explain in the end of Masechta Brachas. Brachas is supposed to be the Kabbalah's oil, but it ends with Talmidei Chachamim, Chol Limud Benoich Limudei Hashem, the Maila, the advantage of being learned, Limudei Hashem. And the Rebbe explains it's not a contradiction, but this is actually a continuation and a result of that level of simple bittul that is expressed also in the highest achievement in the Limudei Hashem, as the Rebbe will explain in the Sikha. We'll go step by step. Aleph. Beim ersten Mal in Torah, wo Eden werden angerufen, Banim Lamoket. In the first place in the Torah, where the Jews are called sons to Hashem, was das is in der Heintiker Sedra. That is in today's Sedra, the Sedra of Shemos. State in Pasuk, but the Pasuk doesn't just call them sons. It says, B'ni B'chayri. B'chayri Yisrael, my oldest son. In this context, B'chayri doesn't mean like a B'chayra, firstborn, but in a meaning of distinction, of greatness. In B'ni B'chayri Yisrael, B'chayri Loshon Gedula. B'chayri means a language of greatness, as Rashi teaches the pasuk in the pshat, that means B'ni B'chayri. So we see that here there's an emphasis that this son, that we, the Bnei Yisrael, are distinguished, are the great sons for Hashem. But on the other hand, we find many times that the distinction of the Jewish people is not because their greatness, but their simplicity and their youth, their cotton being a minor. Bekama Ma'amor Chazal, in many saying of our sages of blessed memory, verbindt men aber de Meile von Eden als Bonim. They tie this advantage that the Yidden are children mit Ninyan Hakatnus, with the idea of being small, being minors, as Eden Zainen via Ben Cotton, that the Yidden are like, not like a son, an accomplished, but like a minor. A son was a minor. As the verse says, Naar Yisrael, he's a lad, a youth. Under Farvo Haveyu, and that's why I love him, as it says in the Pasuk in Hosea. So it seems like over there, the emphasis is that he's being youth, that he's young. And that's why I love him, not because of godless. man bringt der Reufa Moschel, and we bring upon this an example from a melech, from a king, Shehoyu loy bonim harbe, who had many sons, V'hoya oyev es hakotten yeser mikulam, but he loved the minor more than all of them. So this saying would mean that the fact is that they are young and youthful, and a cotton, a minor, that's why they are advantageous. That's the greatness. That's the relationship. That the bonim are uh, a youthful. And here the Torah says, B'ni b'chayri. Darf man verstehen. So we need to understand. Bald as the Ave zu a ben cotton is yoiser mikulon, since the love to a son, a minor, is more than all the other sons. Heißt doch, that means, as the Meile von Ben, that the advantage of a son is the mer begilu, is more openly by a cotton, by a godel, by a minor, than there is by an adult. Heint farvos. So therefore, the question is: so how come in our parsha, when we talk about the Redendik wegen der Meile von Yidden, when we talk about the advantage of the Yidden as a Zayin Bonim, that they're sons, so why is the Pasuk, is there Pasuk Madgish, why does the Pasuk emphasize B'ni B'chayri Yisrael, my son, my great one, Loshen Gedula, a language of greatness, when the advantage of a Ben is not when he is great. The advantage of the Ben seems to be when he's a minor, when he is not accomplished. The love of the king is to the one who is more loved, is to the minor, the one who is the smallest of all of them. So why do we emphasize here B'ni B'chayri, the fact that the greatness? So the Rebbe will first explain why is it that the father's love is taka to the minor, to the son, the youngest, more than everyone else, because by the youngest son, you can tell that the love is an essence love from the father to the son, as opposed to when he's accomplished, that love may be obscured by the fact that he's accomplished. So the father loves him for something else. It's not that powerful essence love. Let's look inside base. Batman does verstehen behagdim habir. We'll understand it by introducing the explanation for was the Avel ben Kotn is Yesher Mikulam. Why is it that the love to a son who is a minor is more than to all other sons? Aben Godel, because when we're talking about a son who's an adult, who's already grown up intellectually and emotionally, etc., is the ava, so ave love, so the love of the father to that son, nit alamol nor mitzadem alein. It's not always just for this alone was Eri Zankin because it is his son. The love is not always from the father, is because it is his son. Because der Av can him euch lieb haben, because the father can also love him, weil der Ben is a chochem, because this son is a chacham wise, and conducts himself according logically, intellectually. So the father loves him because the way he leads his life based on his wisdom, on his seichel, or because he may have good character traits. The father loves him for his intellect or for his emotional good midas. Oder weil der Ben ist stark zohirin kibud up. Sometimes the loss of the son is because he's very careful in honoring the father. The father loves him because he honors him. Was das als is an ave, was is mitzad hatam. All these are love that are based on reason. It's not that essence love that a father has to a son. It's a love that the father might have to his adult son because of the son's level, because of his accomplishment, because of his intellect or of a character trait or the way he treats him. So it's based on the reason. Masha'enkin, the Abba von Afoter zu Ben Kotten, however, as opposed to the love of a father to a minor, a small, a young son, is blois an Ava Atzmi. So there's no accomplishment. It's purely an love of the essence of a father to the son, because the son hasn't accomplished anything. Warum der Ben Kotten hat nicht kein Shlema Sasech Amidas. He does not have any wholesomeness in intellect or emotion. Und noch mehr. And furthermore, euch das, was der Kind folgt dem Taten und is im Chabet, also the aspect that the child listens to his father and honors his father is as nit mitzad milas haben. That's not because of the son's greatness that the son responds and listens to the father. No, dos is an inyan atzmi in kind. That is a matter in the essence of the child. While the kid feels ados is ein tate, because the child feels that this is his father, so that's why he listens to him. Obemele is ava sa'av lebenoi. So therefore, the love of the father to the son, since this son does not have any accomplishments intellectually, emotionally, and the kid only listens to him not because this son has an understanding, but it's because of the essence of the child that he knows, he feels that's his father. So therefore, is avas ha'av libnoi. So the love of the father to his son, dit mitzad hatam. It's not because, not based on reason, milas benoi, because of the advantage of his son. Narzi is an ava atzmis. It's an essence love. Vibald as Edi sein Kind, since he is his child. Was Avu ben seinen an etzem echad, the father and the son that really one essence. The riber him live. That's why he loves him. So by a minor, there is no interfering, or there is no other reasons for the love outside of the fact that this is his essence. They're really one and the same. He loves him because he is his child and they're really one. And that's the reason for the love. It's not a rational love. It's not based on any accomplishment. Now, by adult son, he's also an essence, one essence of the father. But over there, his advantage may obscure and may block that expression or that visible level of love that is based on the etzem. Baya ben godel, by a son who's an adult, afal pivos oich ed is etzem echad mitov. Even though he too is one essence with his father. Since there is also a love which is based on reason, accomplishment of the son, that covers on that essence love which is between the two because of the accomplishment. So that takes away, that sort of covers, and it's not visible, that essence love. Ben Cotton, but as opposed to when we're talking about a son who's a minor. In which there doesn't exist the love that is reason. It's not an accomplished, the son is a minor. Is the Ava Atzmis Begilui, that essence love, that they're one essence, and that's love is just because that's his child and that's his father, is open. Und der Far is der Av Oives Hakot Yeser Mekulam. That's why the father loves his son more than anything, everything. So here the Rebbe explains the physically, why is it that a father will love a minor more than the other children is because by the other children it's possible that their accomplishments when they grow in their intellect and emotion and the way they treat their father, that should be a reason for loving them. But by the minor, there is no other accomplishment. So there is only that essence love because he's a son and it's not covered by anything. So even openly, you see that love as opposed to by the adult, even though there is also that essence love, but that can be covered because of the other reasons. But by the minor, there's no other reasons to cover, and therefore it remains with the essence love. And the Rebbe is going to explain the same thing is the love between Hakadosh Baruch Hu and the Yidden, why we are considered minors. That's why the Eibishter loves us with that essence love. When a Yid is accomplished in his service to Hashem, so that may obscure that love of Hashem because we're his child. It's dafke when he's a minor, when he's a cotton, in which we can tell. Gimel. Azoy vidos is by an avu ben lemata, just as it is by a father and a son below. Azoy is a soich lemailo. Same thing is also above Kaviyachal, so to speak. Zwischen Ebersten, Avinu Shabashamayim, and Eden Banim Lamoket, between Hashem, our Father in heaven, and the Yidden who are sons to Hashem. V'adrab. It's not that because we see it in the relationship physically between a father and a son, that's why we say the same thing is above between the relationship between Hashem and the Jewish people, a father and son, but it works the other way around. It starts because of the relationship between Hashem and a Yid. That's why it also evolves to the relationship between a father and a son. Kipshute. V'adrabe, the Ava Atzmis von Eltern zu Kinder, that essence love from parents to children, wird nicht tauschel von der Ava Atzmis von dem Ebersten zu Eden. That evolves from the essence love from Hashem to Eden. Und der Fahr Take is das a moshel betoiras emes, and that's why, because it comes from the Father to this from Hashem. That's why it's a moshel b'teres emes. It's a example which the Torah is true because that is a true because it really comes from Hashem. This is true of Avos Hakadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael on the love of Hakadosh Baruch to the Yidden. Why is that a mashal? Why is the love of a father to a son physically a mashal of the love of Hashem? Because it comes from that love. That's why true Torah can give that as a mashal because that's actually the reason why a father loves a son with an essence love is because that's the way Hashem loves a Yid, and from that it evolved to the love of a father to a son. But we see it in this world, and that's why that becomes our mashal, our example of an essence love. So, as a zayne dot zwei efanim, but this connection, a love between Hashem and the Yidden there's two ways, madregas, there's two steps in Avos HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael, in the love that that HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves the Yidden. When Yidden dienen dem Ebersten, when the Yidden serve Hashem, umezet begolu zer maile legabe ala umesh, and you can see openly their advantage relative to the other nations. Damult is Avos HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael, then Hashem loves the Yidden. Oich also an Avos Shemitzad Atam, then it's a love that based on the reason, because they're serving Hashem. Bedugmas ha'ave fun an av libnei hagodl. That would be similar to the love of a father to his older son. Und der Fahr gefindt man as der Medrash, and that's why we find that the Medrash verbindet posik b'ni b'chayri Yisrael. He ties the verse, my son, the great b'chayri Yisrael, mit dem meisim tovim fun Yidden. It's associates with the good deeds of the Yidden. Shebachru maisim tovim lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, ala HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They were started the Lashon B'chayr, the first, the good deeds before Hashem by Sinai. One in idea of B'chayri, Bichru Lashon, first, the beginning, like the oldest, started off with Maisim Tovim and Har Sinai, while another B'chayri Lashon Gedula, because why is it associated to Maisim Tovim? Because we're saying B'chayri, as Rashi says, Gedula, B'ni B'chayri, Weist of der Meile Gluye von Eden. That represents the open, revealed advantage of Yidden, which is when they perform Maisim Tovim, they do good deeds, and then there's a love for them because of reason, because they are behaving in a way that is advantage, and Hashem loves them for their uh, doing, for based on the good deeds that they're doing. So, because at that point they didn't have an open advantage over the nations because of what they do, because the way they behave and the Maisim Tovim they do. Es ist aber da the Abba Atzmis von Eberstun Seed, but there is the essence love. That's a love which is based on time and reason because of what they do. It's that love, the essence from Eberstun Seed. Was sie seinen Chelek kamil mal mamish. Yidden are a portion of above, actually. Like they're one etzem, they're from the same essence of Hashem. The Yid is a portion of a Lakam Mal Mamish, a Chelik Min Ha'etzem. He's a part of the essence. Bedugmas Ha'ava Funan Av Libnei Cotton, that is similar to the love of a father to his son who's a minor. Der Far was der Ben is sein Kind, it's because of his child. Was die Ava, that love is abhängig. It's not dependent von der Avoide von Eden on the service that the Yid does. That's a love of the essence of Hashem with Yidden, like the love of a father to his minor child. That's a love that Hashem has for a Yid, independent, not hinged on, not dependent on whether he does serves Hashem or not. That's love because the son is part of Hashem. We are part of Hashem. We state in Medrash, as it says in the Medrash, the Rebbe says in the brackets that Kishem, Kshebnoi shel Odom, Kshehutino Kotten, just like a son of a human being, when he's a young child, Im Yechta, if he sins, Ein Aviv Misalik Olav, the father does not remove him on him because he's a minor, so he doesn't, even he sins. But Kach Yisrael afilu choitim bishgogo, likewise the Yidden, even if they accidentally sin, Maila leim shem kitinu cotton, the Eibishter counts as if they're a small child. Basically, there is that essence love because the father, because when you're young, it doesn't count it for you because that's the at that point is what you do. Even if you do a sin, uh, he does not count it for you because you're a minor. So that's why the Yidden, the Eibishter treats them like a tinu cotton. Und die Ave steh begili. So that expression, that love is open when Eden seinen bei Veidosen va ben Cotton. That is openly when they are, as when in their service to Hashem, as a minor son. Then it's openly that there is a love just because you are a son. There is an essence love. When me feel the me is abal maila, when you feel that you are advantage, somebody who has a greatness, in elikus, you have an understanding in godliness. or Avas Hashem, Beyiras Hashem, Bechulu, love of God and the fear of God. You are a person, you feel yourself who has reached greatness. You have advantages because of your status that you understand godliness, you love and fear Hashem. Und der Gefühl is begilui by mention that that feeling is open. The person feels that is euch avas Hakadosh Baruch Hu a love. So then also the love of Hashem to him, an avas shemitzad hatam. That's a love. That's a reasonable love. If you love Hashem, and if you feel yourself that you have a connection to Hashem because of your reached a certain level of love and fear and understanding, so then Hashem loves you in that way also, a love which is based on reason. Vazi is milim of their ava atzmis, which obscures the essence love that there is, because the love is now for the reason for the greatness. Davke ben filled sich wie a cotton. Specifically when you feel yourself like a minor. As nit kukundik of the grace miles was me vermocht. That notwithstanding, despite the great levels that you've reached, that you own, is man klein by sich, you still consider yourself humble by yourself. You're small in your own eyes. Bizvat to the extent you consider yourself like a small baby. Was hot nit kein shum miles geluyas, which has no open advantages, no higher, no achievements. B'meila is the avodah. So then, how do you serve Hashem? Nit mitzat tam bedas gishmak. It's not based then on your reason and on understanding and knowledge, your taste, you feel it feels good. Not with Kabbalah soil. You serve with accepting the yoke. You do because you have to do for Hashem. It's not based on your good understanding or feeling or greatness, but you're serving Hashem just without any advantage. You hold yourself small in your eyes. And this would be just like physically, punkt via cotton kipshute. Just like literally, a cotton was eine von seine tchunes is one of the characteristics of a miner, as that is betava kabbalas elnik, that naturally he accepts the yoke. Folgt sein in the Eltern, he listens to his parents. Afilu when even in a case, or Chotch notwithstanding, and versteht nicht der Minyan besichla, he doesn't really understand the idea intellectually, but he still listens. That's Kabbalah Soil. So when a person serves Hashem in that capacity, like a cotton, like a miner, with accepting the yoke, das ruft arois dem Gilui ha'ava atzmis von Ebersten Zieden. That calls out, that brings out, that elicits the revelation of the true, the essence love from Hashem to a Yid. So the Rebbe explains in Avodas Hashem that it is specifically when we approach Hashem as a cotton that we can bring about that love of Hashem to us in the essence love just because we're His child. When we serve Hashem with our greatness, or we feel that level of greatness, accomplishment, then we get the level of love of Hashem that is connected to our accomplishments, which is a rational love. But to get that essence love is when we feel towards Hashem like a miner who serves, accepts his father. That's a nature of a cotton, Kabbalah soil, to accept, even he doesn't understand. He will still listen to his father. And that is also the idea of serving Hashem like a cotton, like a miner, just accepting Hashem. That brings out the essence of love of Hashem. But the Rebbe is going to further explained, so it turns out that you're better off not serving Hashem with Ave, Yira, and accomplishment because that obscures on the level of love. You have a greater love when you're not accomplished. Dalet, medarf nachaber hoben abiyur. We still need explanation. Api hanalkum tu is based on the above. It turns out as mishas men bleibt bavoida ruchnis in adarge from katnus that when you remain in your spiritual service in a level in a step of being a minor, bring those to Gilui Ha'ava Atzmis. That brings to the revelation of that essence love, because you serving Hashem, you're a minor, only itoch. But on the other hand, the avodah from Eden, the Torah mitzvahs. On the other hand, when a yid serves Hashem, Torah learns Torah, serves the mitzvahs, in an oifen was bringt arois the milas geluyas in such a way, you're learning that it brings about the open greatness of Yidden, the seichel midas, intellectually, emotionally, through the learning Torah and accomplishment and refinement of midas. That all of a sudden turns out to be a negative. And therefore, you also get the love of above that is a reasonable love. The Eibishter loves you now because you have greatness. Is Gora Helemiv that Abba Atzmit, that becomes an obscurity that blocks the essence love. So, how do we reconcile that? Now, you can say, uh, yeah, he has those advantages, Take, but he has to do them with bittel. Uh, and when you do it with bittel, they won't obscure because, as the Rebbe said before, if you're not serving Hashem uh, because of these Milus Giluyas, but with bittel, then you get the level of the essence love anyways. But still, as the Rebbe will explain, it's difficult to understand. Emes take. Let it be true. Azayindig bebittel v'katnus, that being that you are in the state of self-effacement, subjugation, and minor smallness, seinen demeiles geluyes von Aiden. So then when you have these open advantages, nit mailim der ava asmis, they don't obscure, they don't block the essence of canal, as mentioned before. Is das aber nit mesugav yoshor von der avodas habitel? That's not a direct uh, consequence, not a direct result from his service of being in a way of bittel. It's not that the bittel allows for the Milas Giluyas. It's not that the bittel accomplish as der bittel tut oif in der Ava Atzmis. It's not that the bittel brings about the Ava Atzmis. What the bittel does, it doesn't allow for the Ava Atzmis to be obscured by the Milas. So when you serve Hashem with bittel, those open Milas don't block that Ava Atzmis. Siznor, the Siznor has need kokendik of the Milas Gluyas Shaloi. That notwithstanding that he has these great levels, can the Ava Atzmis welche is do melechatchila. So then that essence love which exists to begin with before he reaches the level of Milus Giluyas. And now he has the Milus Giluyas. Normally they would obscure, but because he has Bittel, is bleiben Begilui, they can still remain openly because the advantages did not don't obscure that Ava Asris. Mitzadem was der Bittel tut auf in Inyan HaHelem von dem Milus HaGeluyas. Because the Bittel accomplishes that it blocks the open Milus, so that, which means they don't stand out. The advantages of the accomplishments don't stand out, and you have the level of bittul, so you can still remain and you can still be at the level of having that ava atzmis because your bittul accomplished that it doesn't interfere. The milas giluyas don't interfere with the level of ava atzmis, but from them was der Eberster hat not be given. So, but that would mean that growth, accomplishment, really contradicts the level of Ava Atzmis. The fact that you do it with bittul, it doesn't allow for it to obscure. But Torah mitzvahs essentially seem to be obscuring the accomplishment. But since the Eibishter made it in a way that we have to grow from youth to become older, from Katnus to Gadlus, that means that in growth there should be an advantage, not a disadvantage, because the more you grow, now you lose out in that essence love because you've become and you've grown higher. From them, aber was der Eibishter hat not be given. The fact that the Eibishter made this nature, he put this in Amizol Vaxen, Mikatnus Legadlus, that one should grow from small to become big. Was die Tchune von Gadlus is nicht Bittel Vekatnus. The characteristic of greatness is not self-effacement and smallness, nor der Gittel, person's growth from the mention the person grows intellectually and with emotion. Und sicher is nicht die Kavone, and for sure it's not the intent that the Ava Atzm is only solemn and that it should be obscured. So naturally it seems like we should not be losing out, and because of we're growing, which the Eibishter wants us to grow. So there can't be the intent that the Eibishter wants us to grow so that we can block that essence love. Is moving as the avodas havaye was kumt arois from der tchuna from Gadlus Gufa. So that means that the service of Hashem, which comes out from this characteristic of growing itself, it's not that growing is an obstacle or a contradiction. And despite the contradiction, Bittel will allow for the shine, but the growing itself should be an expression that brings Benzis Kifia Rotzen, that when it is according to the will of Hashem, you grow properly. So I sofer v'hagdola, that should bring an addition and an increase, a growth. Also in the revelation of the essence of love. Growth itself should represent more love of the essence, not an obstacle and not a contradiction that we got to deal with, but fakert. That growth should express the love of Hashem. As the Rebbe will explain that actually the growth and achievement and accomplishment is not in essence a contradiction to the level of the Ava Atzmi. Actually, it comes out, it grows out from that essence love. Hey, the beer in them. The avoida fun a'idin b'seichel u'midas, the service of a yid, intellectually, emotionally, is nit chas v'sholem a hepech fun sein bittel zum Ebersten, is not, God forbid, the opposite from his subjugation to Hashem. Nor verkehrt. It's not a contradiction to his bittel, but on the contrary, das ist a titzoa und hemshech davon. That's a result, and it comes from his bittel. His bittel to Hashem brings him to achieving greatness, serving Hashem with seichel and midas. Das gufa was medarf horvet. The fact that one needs to put in effort, as sein seichel, that his intellect, so verstehen, should understand chochmasi yisbarich Torah, to understand his blessed wisdom, which is Torah. So you have to work to understand Torah. Una seine midas, and that one's person's character traits, emotions, all haben achayis und geschmack in Torah mitzvahs, that they should have a vitality and a good taste in learning Torah and doing mitzvahs, is as azoi. Why is that so? Why is he working hard? Well, this is the rotzon ha'elyon, because this is the desire, the want of the Supreme. Und is but lerotzon ha'elyon in alam, and he is subjugated to the world, to the wishes of the Supreme in everything. So the Eibishter wants him to put an effort intellectually and emotionally. So that's an outcome of his subjugation to Hashem. He's doing what Hashem wants. Hashem wants him intellectually to grow and emotionally to grow. Similar to what's explained as it relates to the division from mitzvahs. The mitzvahs are divided in mishpotim, edus, and chukim. There is the statutes, the laws that are rational laws, and the testimonials that testify for different events, the Shabbos, Yontif, and statutes that have no reason. But das is doch a chalukah shel Torah. This is a distinction as from the Torah divides them up like that. As afilu im timtza leimer, even if you will say, as ze seinen mechuluk, nit nor b'taimeim. We're going to say they're different, not just the reasoning. Some have a reasoning, some don't have a reasoning, some are testimonials. But we're going to say it makes a difference how we observe them. Also, we need to observe mishpatim and edus and chukim different. Also, the way we observe makes a difference. Edus darf mekayim sein als mitzvahs seinen meide kvisinyonim. When we do the mitzvahs which are testimonials, then you need to observe them as mitzvahs that they testify for certain matters. Mishpatim, and the laws that are logical, you have to observe them. Also, because the obligation that seichel tells us to do that, intellectually it comes out that this is what you have to do. Is das gufa was mitzvahs sichlis werden getan euch mipnei atam? So then, that itself, why are they being done rationally? That too needs to be because of accepting the yoke. This haste. So why is he doing them rationally? Because Hashem said to do so. He accepts the yoke. Das heißt, der Fahr, was der Eibishter hat größer gewesen, that is because Hashem decreed as der Kiyum von Od die Mitzvah soll sein, euch mitzad Atam. that Hashem decreed that this mitzvah should also be for a reason. That he has to do them because there's a reason, but that's a decree from Hashem to do for the reason. Kumt ois. So what does it mean? So basically the Rebbe brings the example that even if the mitzvahs have different ways to fulfill them, but the different ways to fulfill them is also based because that was the Eibishter's decree. So the same thing is by a Yid when he learns Torah and B'kayim and he uses his intellect and his emotion, it's because he accepts that that's what Hashem wants him to do. Kommt ois as the Meile Ruchni is von an Iden, that the spiritual greatness, advantages of a Yid, b'sichlo midosov, in his intellect and his emotion, fardekonit, they don't cover, or machen it schwacher, and they don't weaken, they don't make it weaker, sein, katnus ubitl v'kabbalah soil, they don't lessen, they don't diminish and take away his subjugation, accepting the yoke, nor farkert. But on the contrary, b'shas ha'id nutzt ois, zay seichel u'midas in avodas Hashem, when a person, a yid, utilizes his intellect and his emotion in the service of Hashem, because this is what Hashem commanded. So it doesn't take away, weiß der Miet. Then he shows that way, as ein Kabbalah's oil is gewachsen. He shows that his accepting of the yoke grew. Es ist nicht geblieben kein Inyan, was ist abgeteilt for sein Bittel. It did not remain, there is no part, there's no idea which is separate from his Bittel. So he has Bittel, but then he has other part. No. Not es hat ihm durchgenommen in Ganzen, but it's something that has encompassed him totally. It penetrated him completely with all seine koiches, with all of his powers, that also his intellect and also his emotion are continuing that Kabbalah soil to accept the yoke. B'meila is nit nor was seine Meile, seine nit Meilem. So not only don't his advantage obscure block of the Rava Atzmis on their essence love, nor Adrabe, but on the contrary, those is Magdil dem Gilu Hava Atzmis, that increases that revelation of the essence love. The fact that he is accomplished and still he's doing this because his Kabbalah's oil shows that his essence love has grown to the areas that it encompassed and it penetrated all of his koiches. As is Oduchnemen, the mentioning Ganzen, that it should penetrate and take through the person totally. And the Rebbe is now going on to explain the end of the Masechta Brachos over here, how the Gemara Brachos, which is Kabbalah soil, that's the Shema Yisrael, a lot of the Perek talks about, but the end is Dafke Talmidei Chachamim, as the Rebbe will continue to explain. Well, the Nekuda Hanal, this point from before that we were discussing, as the Avodah Funa Eden B'Seichel U'Midas, that the service of a Jew with his intellect and his emotion, darf sein ateitzah, that needs to be a result, and a follow-up from sein Kabbalah soil, from his accepting of the yoke. Is euch merumis, that's also hinted in them, was their siyum from their erste Masechta from Shabbos, that the conclusion, the end of the first tractate of Shas, from the Gemara, Masechta Brachos, is discussed, it is wegen the Milos von Talmud Chacham, about the advances of Talmud Chacham. So the Gemara ends over there with the Talmidei Chachamim, ein lahem menucha chulu. The Talmidei Chachamim have no rest. Yelchu mechayil el choyil. They go from strength to strength. And then, further, Talmidei Chachamim marbim sholom ba'ilom. The Talmidei Chachamim increased peace in the world. Shenemar v'chol b'nayich l'mud Hashem chulu v'rav shlem b'nayich. So the Erste Masechta von Shas weist auf Reishis Haveda. The first tractate of the Gemaras of the Shishas Dorim points to the beginning. It's the beginning of the service. But this is Kabbalah Soil, which is accepting the yoke. And we state in the Rishonim, and as it states in the Rishonim, the earlier ones, that why does the Talmud begins with brachas? As the Onik from Shas is Masechta brachas, that the beginning of the Shas is Masechta brachas is Val Reishis Chochma Yiras Hashem. The first of wisdom, of Torah, of Shas, is Yiras Hashem, is fear of Hashem. And in der Masechta, in the tractate of brachas, redt sich wegen Kriya Shema, discusses about the reading of the Shema. Was is the Shema is Yechudish Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the oneness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, ulekabel olav malchus shemayim b'ol Torah v'mitzvahs, and to accept upon oneself the heavenly kingdom and the yoke of Torah mitzvahs, etc. So that's why it starts with the Masechta Brachas, because Brachas has Kriya Shema, and Kriya Shema is Kabbalah Soil and Reishis Chochma. The beginning is Yiras Hashem. Aber der Siyum Masechta, but well, how does the tractate conclude? Everything goes after the end. Red Gor wegen der Meile von Talmidei Chachamim. So over here, the discussion is the advantage of Talmidei Chachamim. Limud HaTorah, which is the study of Torah, which is seichel, intellect, not the level of Krishma, of Yichud, and the idea of Kabbalah Soil, but rather the level of study. And Hakolel Chacharachitum, so this is about Talmidei Chacham. Unochmer, Zeir Maile in them, and what's their advantage? In the fact, they have no rest because they keep on growing from strength to strength. But this is Hepech for the Kabbalah Soil, which is contrary, opposite of the idea of accepting the yoke. But in them, in accepting the yoke, there need not be any changes. And here there is growth constantly. So why does the Masechta end with Talmidei Chachamim when the point of this first Masechta is Kabbalah Soil? Is that emes in them, the hint in this, as their siyum, shleimus for the Masechta, that the conclusion, which means the wholesomeness of this Masechta, avodah for Kabbalah Soil, is when sie nem durch euch dem Seichel ha'odem, when it encompasses and it also penetrates through the intellect of the human being. Afilu hasleichel bishleimusei, even the most complete, wholesome of seichel, which is seichel ha'torah, Kabbalah's oil should penetrate there as well. When seine inyonim als Talmid Chochem, when his matters as being a Talmid Chochem, seine nachelik from Masechta Brachas, they're part of the tractate Brachas, Yiras Hashem. An oizdruk from sein Kabbalah Soil, it's an expression of his Kabbalah Soil. His study of Torah, his intellect, his growth, is a result, is an outcome of his Kabbalah Soil, of Masechta Brachas. Zayin, od die Vereinigung zwischen Kabbalah Soil. So this uniting Kabbalah Soil, Masechta Brachas Shema, was direkt aus the Meile Atzmis von Aiden als Bnei Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which expresses the essence, advantage of a Yid, that we are a son of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as we said earlier in Siv Gimel. With the Meiles Giluyas, with the revealed advantage, Seichel Midas, is Oich Merumas, is also hinted in the Maimer Shebemsim HaMasechta Gufa, in the saying, which is in the end of the Masechta. We see this connection, the union between Kabbalah's oil and the revealed levels, that they're together. It says, "V'chol b'naich l'muda Hashem v'rav shloim b'noich al tikra b'noich ela b'noich." So it says two things over here. "V'chol b'naich l'muda Hashem." All your sons. This is literally the pasuk is zwei in Yorim. Aleph. V'chol b'naich l'muda Hashem was there b'naich main banim kipshute. All your sons, meaning all the children, will be learned of Hashem. And then the pasuk adds, the Rav Shloim Banoich. And a lot of peace is Banoich. And here already Banoich, the Gemara says that it means Banoich. The Rav Shloim Banoich was of them Banoich. On this second Banoich, zog the Gemara, Al Tikra Banoich Elo Boinoich. Those who built you. Tamid Chachomim. Welche seinen Beine dem Eilum, dort haben wir that built the world. Seinen See marbim sholem ba'ilum. They are the ones that increase peace in the world. Berav Shloim is Boinoich, is the people that learn Torah, the Talmidei Chacham. The Pash is the Tam. So simply, what is the reason for the Gemara bring as Cholos HaKosuf? Why does it bring the first part, which is not expounded to? It's just the Gemara wants to bring the idea that Talmidei Chacham marbim sholim ba'ilom. So what does it bring down the pasuk? V'chol b'naich l'muda Hashem, which is just the introduction, doesn't talk about the Talmidei Chacham. So why does the Gemara bring tas cholos hakosuf? Is not to revise, only to prove as Aleph the pasuk read wegen limudei Hashem, that it's talking about v'chol b'naich limudei Hashem. So we know that we're talking about Talmidei Chachamim. That's the one reason. And number two, the zweiten b'noich, the second b'noich, darshet ben al tikra b'noich ala b'noich. How do we darshan it? Der Farwelle steht frier b'noich. B'noich. Since already it says in the beginning, it says b'noich. So that's why we know that later on we can darshan al tikra b'noich ala b'noich. So we bring down the first pasuk, in the first part of the pasuk, the Gemara brings down where it says b'noich. So first of all, because we see we're talking about Talmidei Chacham Limudei Hashem, and then we can darshan al tikra b'noich ala b'noich because it's the second time. But ba'omek yeser kemen zogen. But deeper we can say, as the verter v'chol b'naich limudei Hashem, the oldest sons are learned of Hashem, zayin oichabir of the drosha, they're also explaining the drosha al tikra b'noich ela b'noich. It explains that. As you do the klal in them limud von al tikra ela, there is a rule when you say don't read it b'noich ela b'noich, as those kum nit shoylo zayin dem tikri, that it's not negating don't read it as such, but it's adding. Don't just read it as banoich, but also banoich. Similar, it's by us too. Oich nochen limud al tikra banoich el banoich. Even after we say don't read it as banoich, bleibt euch der pirush from banoich kipshute. It still remains, the simple meaning of banoich remains, literally. What does it mean? In avodas adam meintus, what does it mean in the service of Hashem? Das was Talmidei Chachamim seinen banoich, the fact that the Talmidei Chachamim are those who built you, Marbim sholim ba'olam, they increase peace, they're built, and Talmidei Chachamim Marbim sholim ba'olam. Rav Shloim banoich, that they bring about the sholim, is davke ben zeir limud is via ben banoich, is specifically when they learn Torah as a ben. Banoich becomes Banoich Mar B'Sholim. Was Mailis Aben is Be'iker. By a ben cotton. The advantage of a son is mainly by a minor son, Kenal. Das heißt, when the limud is mit katnus und mittel, when the study is with smallness and humility and bittel. So al tikra rav shloim banoich, when you bring shloim and build, it's when it's banoich, when you're a ben, which is mainly by ben cotton. Was for a shaykhis hot bittel to limud. But what is the connection between this humility, this to the level of study? Seems like it's opposite. Learning is growth, understanding that's subjugation. Is the posik magdim v'chol banoich is limude Hashem. That being banoich is also limude Hashem. It's part of the banoich. The limude Hashem is a result of the banoich. The inyan from limude Hashem, the idea of limude Hashem is nit kein bazunder meile von Haid. It's not the separate advantage of a yid. No, das kommt zusammen mit banoich. This comes together. Chobonaich is the Mud Hashem. Zayin benoich shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Being that you are a son of Hashem, which means you're one essence with Hashem. The etzem from Eden is ein zach mit Elokus. The essence of a yid is one thing with godliness. Bringt es memela, so this automatically brings as al inyone odom zayin ein mit Elokus, that all matters of the person become one with godliness. Zayin seichel is oif zu zayin lemudei Hashem. Why does he have an intellect? What does he use his intellect to be? Learned by Hashem. If learning Torah, learning out of Torah. Seine midas, his midas of avas Hashem, yiras Hashem chulu, is for love and fear of Hashem. His whole being, everything about him is Hashem. And therefore, v'chol banayich lemudei Hashem. V'chol banayich. If you are, if you're really banoich, is men limuda Hashem. Anyone who is banoich v'chol is limuda Hashem, because it's all a level of expression. You're bittul to Hashem. Everything about you is in a way of Hashem, limuda Hashem. Or the far. That also when you're occupied in the study of Torah, when you're learning Torah, so then openly you see the Talmid Chacham part, the growth part, the building part, it's still based on Banoich, it's mused on that level of bittul kabbalah soil. Amizaben lakodesh baruch hu, we're a son to Kadosh Baruch Hu. Was drikt sich ois in katnus bittul canal, which expresses itself by smallness, humility, as we said earlier. So the boinoich is part of the bonoich. Ches. V'yeshleimer as mezet advar pelo b'zeh. You can say we see something wondrous about this. As we begin to verstehen the Meile Atzmis von Aiden als Bnei shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, just as we present and we give the understanding, the essence love from a Yid because we're a son of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. How do we explain that? Mit a moshel von dem Yachas zwischen Ava ben Kotten begashmis, with an example, the relationship between a father and a minor child physically. And we say, weil die Ava Atzmis von Eltern zu Kinder, because that essence love from parents to children nimmt sich von der Ava Atzmis von dem Ebersten, because that comes from the essence love from Hashem Avinu to Eden to the Eden Bonim. Hashem loves us, and that's why a father loves a child. Kinasik Gimel. Also ist es euch in dem Prat von V'chol Bonayich Limud Hashem. Also in this detail, that all the Bonayich, it becomes the Limud Hashem is the extension. The Limud Hashem is extension of this Bonayich. As Bonayich bringt mit sich the Meile von Limud Hashem. That this Bonayich brings along with it the advantage of Limude Hashem, that bittel of Benoich, from them Inyan Vidosis by Eden, Benoich Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the way it is by Eden, which we are as children of Hashem, werd nicht ausleucht ben kotten kipshute. This evolves later on to a minor child, literally as by a kind's sein and faran, by a child exists nicht nur die Tchunes von Katnus und Bittel, Kanal Siv Gimel, not only the level of smallness and humility as in the end of Siv Gimel, nor euch von Limud, but also study. Zed b'muchash, you see, in practically, as a kind fragt und fragt euch, child asks and asks questions out, wegen alles, was es tut sich herum ihm, about everything that goes on around him. Halt ihn ein fragen, was, he keeps on asking what, far was, and why. Und bekommt nicht kein Antwort, and if he doesn't get an answer, was befriedigt him, that satisfy him, fragt lieber noch einmal und wieder einmal, he asks again and then again. Und noch mehr. So just the Limudi Hashem comes from Banoich, from that evolves that a child, the Banoich wants to always learn. Und noch mehr. Euch die Meile von Talmud Chochem, was wird da rausgebracht in dem ersten Meimer, Shebesim Mesechta Brachos. Also, the advantage of the Talmud Chochem, which the Gemara expresses in the end of Brachos, the first statement. It says, Talmid Chachomim ein lehem menucha. Now we're talking about Tatika Banach Halabanach, but the first statement towards the end of the Gemara of Sechta Brachos is Talmid Chachomim ein lehem menucha yelchu mechayel l'choyel. They don't have any rest. They go from strength to strength. Is faram the golu by a cotton. It's also openly by a minor. Atin cotton, a small child. As you see vividly, as a kind in a gesunden Zustand, a child, if he's in a healthy state, rutnit, he doesn't rest. Bleibt nicht lange auf demselben Ort, he doesn't remain too long on the same place. Halt ihn ein bewegen sich, he keeps on moving. Suchen etwas zu tun, also weiter. Always looking to turn, always active, always moving, always hyper, going around. Noch mehr. Die Tchunes, these characteristics einen da bei Kindern are by children in a viel größere Maß wie bei Erwachsenen. On a much greater measure than by grown-ups. By Kindern it is an Indian TV. By children it's a natural thing. Masha Enkim by Erwachsenen, not by adults, the moving around over there. It's a natural phenomenon by children. Why is it? It's all because this comes from the way it's above. So we can say the inner reason this since being bonayich from Hashem in the spiritual sense, the Yidden's relationship with Hashem brings automatically limudei Hashem, that it studies that fun seinen euch dort die Tchunes von limudei by bonim kipshutim. This is why the characteristics are also of studied by children literally. Und wie bald das bei a kind is that inyan from banoich mer begilu, since by a child that banoich, that connection is more open in sein euch die Tchunes von limudei mer begilu. That's why also that learning and questioning and wanting to know and movement, it's always openly, just like and Yelchum Chayil Chayil always moving. And therefore Vados is by Yiddish Kinder, and the fact that this is by Jewish children because they come from that level of Avos Mokim to the Bonim, to the Yidden, and Yidden werden noch nicht tausel in Welt, then it evolves in the world. So is the term of Yedkin, and that becomes the nature of all children, Jewish or not. Basically, there is that movement and going around because it evolves from that. Everything comes from that relationship between the Avas Hashem to a Yid, the B'nai. So the Rebbe says that other parts of this Maimer Chazal, and both Maimer Chazal, that Ein Lehem Menucha, and the fact that they become a Lamudei Hashem is expressive in children because this is nishtalshul from the way it is Lamaila, just like the actual love of a father to a son comes from the love of Hashem to a Yid. The nature, the other details also are nishtalshul from the love of Hashem to a Yid, as it comes out openly more in the actual child who is more revealed, has that connection of the Ava Atzmis. And then it comes into the world by all nations. Tasapi So based on all the above, the Rebbe goes back to explain the question that we started off was the Pasuk Zok B'ni B'chayri Yisrael. As afal pi as the mile von a ben is mer begilui by a ben cotton. Even though that the advantage of a son is more open by a minor, son is minor. Was der far werden iden bekamen mekoymes zugeglichen zu a ben cotton kin alsibalum. That's why the Yidden are many places equated to a minor son. As we said before, in Sifaluf. And yet the Pasuk says, B'ni b'chayri Yisrael. So the Rebbe explains, the Miles Geluyes von Eden, was mitzad dem seinen ze b'chayri loshen gedula. These open advantages of Yidden, that they makes them into the b'chayri, into the greatness, loshen gedula, seine nit kein bazunder inyan von seir meile atzmis albonim. It's not something, a separate idea from their essence advantage that their children shall Kadosh Baruch Hu. Not adarab, but on the contrary, the shleimus von der meile atzmis von Ayidin, the completeness, the wholesomeness of that essence advantage of a Yid als ben la Kodesh Baruch Hu, that he's a son of Kodesh Baruch Hu, is when das kumt aroisu de gilui euch in seine Milas Agluis, is when it comes out openly also in his revealed Milas. So that's when you see the Milas Haben. Kinal Baruch, I said that earlier at length. So the Bechayri is not a contradiction, but on the contrary, that the Ben expresses itself also in his Milas Agluis, in the Bechayri. B'shas men will oizdriken di ava atzmis von HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael kishala atzmo. When you want to express that essence love from Hashem to the Yidden on its own, nutz men the moshel von avas haben the b'nai hakotten. Then we use the example of the father's love to his minor son. While by a ben cotton is the ava atzmis begilu mitzad teva, because by a minor son, that essence love is open in nature. By a ben cotton, the charhotnit kemailos giluyas doesn't have any open advantage. Is ava sa'ave love blois on ava atzmi. So then the love of the father to him is only that essence love. The kegum by a ben godel, as opposed to when we talk about a son who is an adult. Velcher Hotsha in Milas Giluyas, which already has open advantage, greatness, Milas. Was Rufna Reis the Avas Ha'avshe Mitzad Tam, that also elicit the love of the father that are based on reason, is thus al piteva naturally afarstel ev der Ava Atzmis, that naturally covers that essence love. Blois durch Ishtadlus and parenthesis, effort, v'yigia kemen oifton. If you work hard, effort, you can accomplish as Alpha Pekins or the Ava Asmas Blind Megillah, that still that essence love should still remain open. These as the Milas Giluyas. So noch verstärken dem Gilu Ava Asmas to the extent that these revealed Milas should even strengthen the revelation of that essence love canal, as said earlier, You have to work on it. Naturally, they cover, but you can bring it out that it should actually extend to it. But when we want to say who the people are, not discussing just the Abba Atzmis, when say, what are the Am Yisrael? Dan is the Toyer B'ni B'choiri. Then the description becomes my son, my B'choir. Al derech v'chol banayich limudei Hashem. Similar to what we say, that the limud Hashem v'zok arois, that banayich becomes the limud Hashem, as the Maila Atzmis von Eden als Bonim, that essence of Maila of Eden as sons, nimmt sie durch, it penetrates them, it encompasses them, goes through them. Das wird die ganze Metzius von Eden, b'chol haprotim. That becomes the entire entity of a Yid in all of his details. This is Mesichas Shabbos Parshas Bolok V'chof Menachem of Tavshin Mem Aleph.